Hey there, brilliant people. So today's question is, what is my intuition? Well, I guess that's a question I should answer, seeing as how this whole channel is really, it's about living intuitively. So obviously we talk about your intuition a lot. So we should kind of talk about it. And there's various answers. So some of those answers are really more referring to what I call unconscious intuition, and some of those answers refer more to what I call conscious intuition. Conscious intuition is simply when you have more active control over your intuition, so you can tap into it at will. So with a lot of your unconscious intuition, people will say things like, well, your intuition is that inner voice. It's, that silent whisper that comes from inside. It's, whatever you conceive source to be, it's that talking to you. Some people will say, well, actually it's just your subconscious sort of figuring out information that you're not aware of. ESP, which stands for extrasensory perception, that they have a kind of a neat definition of intuition, because really ESP is your intuition. They will say it's communication other than through the known channels of the senses. Scientifically speaking, I say, well, it's being able to perceive things with your brain rather than actually through your senses. So it's when you're actually picking up information other than through something that we have developed a sense for, because we have our eyes, and out of all of the electromagnetic spectrum, our eyes will see the visible spectrum, which is tiny relative to the whole spectrum. I talk about this quite a bit in my book, The Soul's Brain. And that's been shown to be a very real thing. They've done studies in Stanford where they've shown that people's brains, but not everybody's, about a quarter of the population, their brains will react to a change in the magnetic field. They may not even particularly be aware of it because the intuition is unconscious, but their brain is reacting. So that information is in their system, even if they're not conscious of it. So that is what unconscious intuition is. So what is conscious intuition? Well, the old word for an intuitive, they used to be called sensitives. So, yes, it is true that a lot of people, perhaps who are a little bit more neurodivergent, like myself, my Asperger's, that a lot of those are often perceived to be more intuitive. But that sensitivity is simply because they're much more, it's like their whole nervous system is much more on a hair trigger. They respond to much more subtle stimuli, and because of that, they have to be more aware of some things than perhaps neurotypical people are. But that doesn't mean that neurotypical people don't have intuition. Of course I don't. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that in order to take your intuition, which we all have, in order to bring it more into a conscious space, we actually have to train ourselves to pay attention to it. And that's where we actually start to become more sensitive, or aware, if you prefer, to certain signals in our system. And when we actually understand that the logic behind our intuition is that pattern-based logic, that can really help. Because we don't necessarily, our intuition is very logical, but it's a different kind of logic. Again, I talk about this in my book. So So, what is our intuition? Your intuition is your ability, conscious intuition, is your ability to make conscious sense of a lot of that very subtle information that your system is receiving all the time, but that most people just choose to ignore or learn to ignore through life. It's actually learning how to tap into it and make use of it because we've learned how to. And as I said, the more we develop systems thinking or pattern-based thinking, the more that we will develop that conscious intuition. So intuition, in many ways, is being able to make use of that wider field of information that is coming in. And we do that by being able to, hear that in a voice. But we're hearing that in a voice because the purpose of our intuition is to support us to be more of who we really are. So that inner voice is when parts of us are aligned. So what is our intuition? Our intuition is that part of our system that is actually meant, just as our immune system is meant to support our system to maintain its integrity, our intuition is that psychological part of our system, or part of our psychological system, that is also meant to support us to be who we really are. So I hope I answered the question in there somewhere, but anyway, take from that what's useful to you and what will help you to remember that you're brilliant.